Man, this is a super treat. These are the gentlemen, some of the gentlemen of the National Card Football League, which, if information is correct, they are now the oldest running APBA Football League in the country, given that the Suncoast League, co-founded by Ray Dunlap, appears to be going with Action PC now. So NCFL started in Columbus, Ohio in 1981 as a face-to-face league. With us, Jerry Zajack, Greg Barath, Bobby Porter, and Brad Morgan. I've had the pleasure of losing to three of you gentlemen.
Does that mean that I'm the one guy that you beat?
No, I've lost to all of you. I have yet to lose to you, but I'm sure that will happen someday. Brad beat me 38-37, his 2013 Seahawks. Last play, Russell Wilson, 8-yard touchdown. This is in the November 2014 Global National Card Football League tournament that included Phil Molloy out in Australia. And yeah, Brad, you had that Russell Wilson touchdown and kicked the point and beat the 07 Patriots 38-37.
As well as
Jerry, I think we played the 62 Lions, 62 Packers, and we called that game up in Canton. We didn't even keep the stats.
32-0. Yeah, we called it after 3 mercy killing. Yeah.
And so then I took my the 62 Lions over to Greg's 2011 Saints, and we called that one after 28-7, 3 quarters. Greg was just pummeling us there as well. The Lions, even though they're an 11-3 team, couldn't catch a break. In any case, I'll shut up now. Folks, it's a real pleasure. So where do you stand in the league right now? What's your standings? And we'll point to the website. Your website, very robust and well kept. But how's the league progressing right now?
Bobby does the website, and he had a big game today, so I'll let him take that one.
Yeah, so I mean, for the ACFL, we're entering. We just finished week 3, so we have 2 undefeated teams remaining. We have the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 3-0, and then the Minnesota Vikings, who just knocked me off. The Atlanta Falcons, who both of us were 2-0. He won a thriller, 45-43. I took a 1-point lead. I went for 2. It was tied, or of course it wasn't tied. I scored to cut it to 1, decided to go for 2, hit Kittle on the 2-point conversion, kicked off, of course it was a touchback. Long story short, Kelsey for a 65-yard bomb. He was covered, but still hit it. And then he took a knee, kicked the field goal, and Vern Kelly is 3-0. And so those 2 gentlemen will play. Jared and Vern will play this week in week 4. As the only undefeateds left in the ACFL. So, yeah, the league's going very well. I mean, we're moving along. We have almost every team's stats for 3 games on the website. We're waiting for myself in Minnesota, which we should have those hopefully by the end of tomorrow, if not tonight. So it's moving very, very well. So we have, of course, LA. That's a flip right there, because I'm doing 81 replay, right? But it's still Oakland. But, the Raiders and the the Vikings are 3-0. So I don't know if Brad and Jerry want to chime in on that at all, or Greg.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say. I'm 0-3.
Yeah.
How hard?
3 weeks into a good season, and the NCFL kicks off in January. So we're all looking forward to that. I wanted to give a shout out to all the other coaches that couldn't be here today. Vernon Kelly, Jared Garman, Mike Harlow, Dick Rupert, Danny Henderson, Jim Baker have all been in the leagues for many years, and in some cases, decades. And then we have a rookie coming on board in the NCFL in January, Sean Coleman. So shout out to those guys. Thank you for being a part of the league. We couldn't do it without everybody's cooperation.
That's awesome. So do you have some of your decade plus folks, are they go back to the face-to-face?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Dick Rupert and Danny Henderson are original members of the NCFL, so 40 plus years.
Man, oh man. How do you stay motivated? Now, I know Ray Dunlap talked about keeping, how to build a league, keep it going. What are some of your tips for folks to say, get it going, keep each other motivated, keep the competition up?
Brad, you take this one. You're the young guy. The old guys are too old and tired. We can't stay motivated.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think the biggest thing with any kind of league play and especially with APBA Football League play, it's about communication. when I joined in, I had just gotten to Fort Carson, Colorado, and just by happenstance, I was on the APBA Between the Lines message board. I had just gotten the season set, and they said, "Hey, we play on Skype," and I had no idea what Skype was, like none at all. So I got linked in with those guys. I know Jerry and Jim. We talked because that was towards the end of, I guess, the 2012 season. And I was like, yeah, let's try it out. And communicating has been the best way for the league to say, because, we all have other things that we're doing. And just being able to communicate with each other, hey, here's where I'm at with this and whatnot. And the communication has really allowed really the NCFL to continue, and the ACFL, I'll get it right. It allowed that one to grow out of the NCFL, because that's essentially what it was.
And now, Greg, you got Greg Barath to pull himself out of the solo replay machine there. How's that, Greg? How's it been the first few weeks here?
Oh, it's been an absolute joy. It really has. I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. For me, the best part is getting to know the fellows. Anytime that you have a shared passion, we all love APBA football. It's nice to be with like-minded folk, And, truth be told, as every year we get older, I don't know if this is just me, but, you got your circle's smaller, I had two best friends. One of them's dead, the other one, Mark, he's now in Florida, so it's nice to be able to, even if it's virtual, to foster more friendships. And so for me, it's just been a joy.
And I want to, on that point, there's been a lot made, of course, the pandemic year, and people have discovered Zoom, and, everyone's, been thrust into the virtual sphere here. But let it be known, word guy can do a little math, that it was 7 years before the pandemic year that the National Card Football League created its Skype-only method. Now, we try to promote that, and I don't know how it works. I imagine it would work for baseball as well, but the NCFL is the absolute undisputed leader. I think you got to claim that. I'll claim it for them. That the Skype method that they demoed up in Canton, and they've been going strong with that. It's a very simple, elegant method. Just to get that point in terms of your teams, how old do these teams? How far do they go back? When did you start drafting? Was it 2013 for the Skype League, or do these teams go precede the Skype era? And how do you?
No, these are all grandfathered in from day one. As you acquire a franchise, you inherit those players. There was no redraft, redraw, throw them back in, anything like that. Yeah. So it's the same group of players that you would have had before.
So how I guess walk us through a draft, if you would. Any kind of particulars that you do, and you've got a cut down window and all that kind of stuff, right?
Sure. In the NCFL, the draft pool consists of any player in the NFL that's not already on an NCFL roster. No NCAA players, but any, and it is wide open. So that's what makes it more of an all-star league, because you have basically an unlimited talent pool to draft from. If they're in the NFL, they're eligible for the draft, as long as they're not already owned. We have 53-man active rosters. There's no limit to the number of players you can carry on injured reserve. The only caveat there is they have to have played in 8 or fewer games the previous NFL season to qualify for injured reserve. Once they're on injured reserve, they have to stay there. They cannot be activated. So you got the same 53 that you're going to battle with the whole year. But you can keep that injured reserve list, as for the following year, so you have a bigger pool to draw from, because they may become active then. And then one of the other guys want to take the ACFL draft differences.
Brad, go ahead with that, bud.
Okay, so when we started the ACFL, we tried to make something different than an all-star league. So we decided that after the initial draft, that we were going to only take the worst 3 teams to draft from. And then the caveat, so that we're not drafting from the Browns every year, at least back then, that's what it seemed like. We put in place that they couldn't be drafted. They had to have a 2-year gap so that they could, essentially, the NFL team could increase their roster of players that we didn't already have, so that we actually had a draft. And so that's how the ACFL drafts. And the ACFL draft is 8 rounds now. And I think it mirrors more like an NFL draft. There comes a point when we all are just starting to just fill gaps, not picking a guy in the 10th round that's going to be a starter, like can happen in the NCFL. But definitely two different methods of drafting. I can tell you, at least for me, I have a very different approach in the ACFL than I do in the NCFL when it comes to drafting. I would tell you in the ACFL, I care about probably the first 3 rounds, and the NCFL, for whatever reason, based on how I look at it, I'm a mid-round guy. I don't put as much stock in the early rounds because there's so much talent deep that you can get something that's going to benefit your team right now in late rounds in the NCFL, but not so much in the ACFL.
And do both leagues have the same number of teams?
There's 10 in the NCFL and 8 in the ACFL.
10 and 8. Okay. So how do you draw up the schedule? Is it a 16-game schedule? Do you have like division or 2 divisions, I think, right?
Two divisions in either league. The NCFL is 5 in each. You play 2 against conference opponents, that's 8, and then you cross over for 5 for a 13-game regular season. ACFL is the same thing. You get 3 teams in your own conference that you play twice for 6, and then 4 out of conference for a total of 10 regular season.
And it's all master game.
All master game, yeah. There's a few modifications that we use, not many, but it's strictly master game, yes.
If you go maybe through some of those mods, then I guess.
Off the top of my head, like in the NCFL, well, both leagues, we don't add the +1 yards on a run against the nickel and dime. It's just easier to do that, and the running game is elevated so much anyhow because you're up an index that we decided to just do away with the +1 just to make it easier all the way around. Minor adjustment to the timing system. We don't count out-of-bound plays as half plays until 5 minutes remaining in each half. We were trying to find the right number of total offensive plays, and we think we kind of got to that with that system. Just for an example.
And nothing kind of like more out of left field, like home field advantages.
No, there's nothing like that. It's mostly master game rules for the most part.
So how do you deal with injuries and quotas in terms of substitutions, player usage, those one-off, guy who starts once, throws 3 touchdowns, something like that?
Sure. The NCFL takes the total actual NFL usage for the season, and that's the number of attempts, rushes, receptions you're allowed for that season. So if you got a guy who caught 60 passes, he's allowed to catch 60 passes. If you want to use them all up in the first 5 games, that's up to you. There's no limit per game. Injuries, it's the same as the APBA rules. If he's a J4, he can miss 1 or 2 additional games depending on the dice roll, or he's out for a quarter, out for a half. The ACFL, we handle a little different. I think Brad came up with the calculations for the usage on that.
Yeah, so the ACFL, I couldn't tell you what the calculation is, but it's their usage number, I think, multiplied by 10% divided by 10 games. That's for the regular season. And then it's their usage times 20%. Something I can't remember exactly how.
That's right. So it's times 20% on a prorated per game basis. Yeah.
Right, and the 20% is for per game for the playoffs. So, like in the NCFL, your usage carries over. If you're a playoff team, it carries over into that 1 or 2 extra games you play. In the ACFL, we reset at the playoffs. Kind of the idea was to simulate sometimes in the playoffs, coaches are going to use guys a little bit more and maybe differently than they did in the regular season. I can tell you the first year I ran into a problem. I made it to the championship game, but it just so happened that the way the calculation was, I was running out of guys that could catch the ball. I mean, I got midway through the fourth quarter. I don't know if Jerry remembers, but I got midway through the fourth quarter and I was slowing down. I was like, hold on, guys. I got to figure out. I was like, I don't know who I can throw it to. So subsequently, what we ended up doing was when we ran out of that, we said, if a player runs into that situation, I don't think we've ever had it since, but that if a player runs out of their usage, especially for runners, you're out, but receivers become C receivers no matter what. So it doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't matter what your offense is. You're going to throw to a C receiver if you have to throw it to one of those guys. And it just happened that my masterful skill of drafting my initial team, I didn't calculate in how much I might need to throw in the playoffs. I mean, maybe I didn't know I was going to make the playoffs.
So how did you come up with these calculations and kind of play test them? Do you have like a smaller rules committee in the group?
Well, I don't think we have a rules committee in the group per se right now. I do know that there's it's in the Constitution, it says it, but we've never really needed to do that. And we just have Skype discussions, during the off season, looking at stuff to see how we can, if we can make any changes that are beneficial to the league. I know for me, my big thing, and they'll all tell you, is my big thing is trying to align the rules of our game to the current NFL, the way the NFL is played now, because as we know, the game covers a wider group of years. I mean, you have from when they made the master game, it was like 82
Mm-hmm.
and 82 till now. So when you look at the booklet, there's some things that, just penalties for one, that just don't make sense in the NFL right now. Just because of how often they might occur, or the NFL's changed some of their rule settings. So I think the biggest one that we fixed early on in the NCFL when I got there was the 5-yard face mask. It hasn't existed in the NFL for quite a long time.
Okay. So do you go to the rule book then and, started this, you've got the new rules this year. I mean, you just kind of superimpose the current NFL rule, penalty rules, all that right over the league stuff, or you still do some tweaking?
No, we have discussions about it. I usually get it takes a lot of work, especially with the penalties. I know I've always said this, the pass interference touchdown on a screen pass. I think me and Jerry's first game, I think we each had one. Mine was like an 85-yard penalty and his was 60 some. And it's just like one of those things that's like, we all know that's not right, but that's the way the game is. And right now that's the way we have the rules. And so, that's what we deal with. And then, I gripe about it later. And then, I go, I go have a coffee or water or something and get ready for the next game.
Speaking of playoffs, do you have like a tiebreaker system that emulates the NFL's rules? Do you have something completely different?
It's similar. Head-to-head is the first tiebreaker, and then conference record, points differential, and so forth. There's about 6 or 7 steps that you can go down through in order to break the tie. And those same tiebreakers apply to draft order as well.
Yeah, and I think I think that tiebreaker rule is the NFL's rule, but because we play everybody, we don't get past like maybe the third one. When we're talking points differential, is probably as far as we could go because everybody has the same opponents. We all play everybody. So it's not like in the NFL you might have a team that doesn't play somebody. We play everybody. So.
Interesting. So on that note, around the table here, you've got some 3-0 teams, some 0-3 teams. Do you all find, take a few minutes each, please, that you adjust your player usage, your strategies? Obviously it's a draft, you're drafting different folks, so you don't really have a team template to, it's like, it's not the actual, a real life club. It's a club that you pull together, so you create your own tendencies. Do you find that you play with certain tendencies and that you adjust those tendencies for yourself or against certain opponents in the league as the season goes on?
Well, from my view, the NFL is a quarterback-driven league, and so are the draft leagues. It's a passing game. You got to have an aerial attack, and a great quarterback can overcome a whole lot of other deficiencies, and so that's why most of the teams, not all, but they run 3 wide receivers. You just, for example, my NCFL team, Aaron Rodgers at the helm. I'm not going to run the ball, even though I've got Derrick Henry. I'm going to throw to Defonte Adams and Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen and Julio Jones all day long, and it's quarterback driven, and that's why the point totals are so high in the NCFL, being an all-star league. And the big difference between that, and I know we talked about some of the other differences, but like the NCFL, my offense is 49-49. That's almost an unheard of number. In the ACFL, it's 37-35. Big difference. So that's a part of the big difference in the leagues too, is to try and make it more realistic, like a NFL team, where the NCFL is more like an all-star league. So.
That's really interesting. That's that. I mean, you've really got to kind of change your mindset. Bobby, Greg, Brad, any other thoughts on like personal styles that evolve, or is it still, as Jerry says, kind of spray?
Absolutely. No, it's absolutely like Jerry said. I mean, we talked in our interview, a couple months back. I mean, it's all about the quarterback, and then having those asterisk receivers as well. I mean, Jerry, I think he has 4 this year, and I've always had at least 1 on my roster in the NCFL, and luckily in the ACFL, and that's why I think I've been successful in high points this year. Matt Ryan's card's pretty good, and then I have that 4 asterisks, and so that makes a huge difference than when you're throwing in the A's majority of the time, or even if you're in the C's, you're still throwing in the B's with those asterisks. So that makes a huge difference. And right now, the ACFL used to be a low-scoring league, and we're seeing record number of points being scored right now. I mean, people are scoring. I would say the average is probably 30. You guys tell me if I'm wrong, but looking at, I do the website, so I see the scores, and I post a schedule. So, I mean, scores are in the 30s. There's been a few games in the 20s. But majority of the games right now are in the 30s, 40s, and it's like Jerry said, it's just driven by the quarterback, and everyone has a good quarterback. And then if you have a couple asterisk receivers, you're going to score points. And the running game is almost non-existent anymore. You can throw it in, sprinkle it in, but your big play, you roll 66 with a medium pass, it's a touchdown all day, every day. So unless he's keyed, but like it was Kelsey, but it was 65 yards. But that's a different. We'll discuss that at a different time. But anyways, you guys know what I'm saying. So it's definitely a quarterback driven league, and that's why the points are so high right now.
Wow. So there's absolutely no hope. No one's doing it too.
I have a different take. I know all these guys, like, and Jerry knows, because I call him Air Zajack, right? And because, like, so for me, when I took over, I think I took over the Colts team and immediately moved them somewhere better in the NCFL, moved them out to Seattle, and placed myself in a really good position. I traded Peyton Manning to ensure that I could get Russell Wilson. I never played with Peyton Manning in the NCFL, but I did trade him. My teams, and they can probably all attest to it, is it's pretty much a run first team. Very weird. I agree with what they're saying. It's a quarterback driven league, but and when they get hot, I'm pretty much out of luck, because my teams score about 30, period. And if I get anything over 30, I'm having a really good day. But if I can keep those guys off of the field, which there's been games when I've done that, played Jerry many times, and as long as I can keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, I've had a chance. But like he said, he's, I can jump out big in games, and this league with anybody, I mean, it could be a quick turnaround. But for me personally, I'm kind of like a run first guy, but I definitely play my games. I've got a server over at the NSA on each one of these guys' tendencies, and I pull that up and use that for pregame.
Nice. Do you I mean, that's interesting. I mean, trying ball control. Do you really kind of look at the charts, the results charts, and kind of, dial in your play calling that way? I mean, you understand the tendencies of the dice, the probabilities. I mean, if you've got 4 asterisk receivers, you've kind of got a bounty there. You can kind of do anything you want. But do you kind of, do you really tend to study the play calls by field position, particularly screen and draw, something like that? I mean, do you tend to really, do you almost do like a West Coast thing where you've got like 10 or 12 plays scripted, or how much do you call things on the fly game to game?
I have scripted plays before, but I will never do it again. Because I was like, I just know what I'm going to do, and the dice mess it up anyway. So I'm like, I got to change that.
Yeah. I think we've all played enough games against each other that we know each other's tendencies for the most part. I'm going to wing it. Brad's going to run, and Bobby's going to throw a ton of screens. So that's safety first, right? The other thing I would say, as far as studying the boards, everybody knows you run inside in the second and third quarters, and you run outside in the first and fourth. And most people do that because the numbers in the master game booklet benefit that. Other than that, I don't know that there's a whole lot more going on there.
Okay. How about blitzing usage or anything? Well, the master doesn't really have the ground play defense per se, like the older version, right? But blitzing, I mean, how much is that beneficial in a given game or throughout a season?
Blitz gives and a blitz take away. Ask Greg against the Bengals. Sure. I don't know. I sent him from a 3 to a 1 a couple times on a blitz.
Yeah. You live by the blitz, you die by the blitz,
So, Greg, how has it been, playing? I mean, you've played face to face, obviously, but I mean, with this level of, and you're playing with your level of study of the game as well, you're looking at how the teams and cards perform now in this face to face, crafted league versus, your, stringent season, player usage, not replicating, but, pursuing the perfect replay of a given season. What are some of your things that jump out to you, and does your personal strategy change?
Well, yeah, I mean, it scratches my itch, and what I mean by that is when I play solitaire replays, I'm more or less evaluating the quality of that card set, quality of the cards, and I let the game play out. And like anything else, I realize the more you trim the bells and whistles, it's a simple game engine, the better your results get, So when I'm doing replays, it's a totally different mindset. When I'm playing face-to-face, I take that hat off, put the face-to-face hat on, and it's great because you get to really tinker with all the aspects of the master game. And yes, tendencies are a big deal. I go back to a game that I played with Brad. Brad, very crafty player. He lets you. He's constantly trying to read your tendencies, i.e., through formations. So, like all right, if I'm in this formation, how many times, what percent do I think Greg's going to be in this one? So very, very heady. We're in the fourth quarter. He stays in his pro set, realizing, okay, that I'm not going to go into the dime in that situation, and he gets me with a good trick play. And he has it all set up. Nothing was by half stance. He had it set up. For me, what I enjoy most about face-to-face is situational football. It's just like NFL Sundays. You gotta be able to run the ball too. Okay, you gotta have to have a 4-minute offense. You gotta keep these star quarterbacks on the bench. If you don't, you're in a world of hurt. For me, I don't have the experience these gentlemen do when it comes to drafting and all that. But the one thing I'm a big believer in is there's 3 aspects to professional football, and people forget the special teams side of the house. I always love to get a cheap touchdown here and there. I want to get a returner that I have a capability to score on. You know, I mean, that's like stealing. You're going against Jerry, and you ain't going to outsmart these guys. You got to have a break here and there, you know. So I'm a big believer in special teams. I want to have a guy that's going to be booting it in the end zone on touchbacks, okay, because these guys are going to do the same thing when it comes to return specialists, you know. They're going to have the top-tier returners. So, you know, I want to have that kicker that I'm not concerned about kicking a 53-yard field goal with, you know, that – you know, you're giving up that valuable field position. So these are the things that in my limited experience league that I've really enjoyed. And I could see myself, if these guys will tolerate me, being in their league for quite a while, you know. So
we sure hope you're around, Greg. We really enjoy you being on board with us. So.
Well,
I want to piggyback on what Greg said, that you know, I'm a replayer at heart, like Greg. I've done multiple seasons, thousands of solo replay games, but the league experience and the face-to-face master game experience, it just adds a whole additional dimension. It just adds to the APBA experience.
It does.
And you got to put your general manager hat on. You got to take that off, put your coaching hat on. And like Greg said, he's played 3 games and he's absolutely spent after each game.
Yep.
It's not like rolling that 75 replay. I mean, that's a whole different game.
That's exactly right, Jerry.
I mean, I love the replays too. That's, you know, if I only had to do one, I'd play replays all day long. But the face to face is unbelievable. It just again, the experience is fantastic. So,
especially when you go against people that know what they're doing. You know,
we're very fortunate. We've got a tremendous group of gentlemen that play. So.
In terms of, and Bobby, I want to get back to your 81 replay because you're in the middle of that one, right? You said, but
so I haven't, like, because of the league. So I put it on hold. I'm still in week 1. You know, I played 3 games, and you know, and I have it sitting over here on my shelf ready to go. It's, you know, I got Cincinnati, Seattle in week 1. After playing, so I'm playing 6 teams. Like I think you guys know, I'm playing just only 6 teams. I'm not doing the full blown. I don't think I could do like what Greg does. I mean, hats off to you, Greg. What you do with those replays is absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you, Bobby.
No, thank you. I mean, I've learned a lot from just your website, and of course, you know, allowing me to, you know, build those fields as far as just giving me that, you know, that platform to look at those fields, and that's on another topic too. But the time to do a replay is unbelievable. And with my job and family, it's tough to sit down, unfortunately, because I don't work from the house, unfortunately. And so to sit down and do a replay is really time consuming. I love it. Just like Jerry. Jerry did a basketball replay, APBA basketball replay, which is, you know, he would send me those updates and I, you know, and I'm a big basketball as well. So, but anyway, that was pretty amazing. What did you do? 71, Jerry?
71, 72, yeah. Full season.
Yeah, full season.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
They need to lock me in a room for doing that. That was I don't know if anybody's tried that, but That's a tough get.
I love he was giving me updates on the stats and the standings. It was awesome. So I really enjoyed that. So, but yeah, it's Jeff, it's tough for myself right now trying to do the 81 replay that I want to. But I eventually will get back to it. But the league play is kind of interrupted. Like Jerry and Greg said, and Brad will definitely agree with as well. It's just the interaction with the guys is bar none, to be honest with you. Just that interaction and that 3 hours you spend with these guys, and it's competitive and it's strategic, and you're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Is like today. I mean, your heart's pounding, right? Playing a game, and it's going back and forth because the guy that I played is Vince Lombardi. All right, he's the Vince Lombardi of our league. I think these guys would agree. He's always winning because he knows what he's doing. He's that's another guy I would probably vote for the Hall of Fame is Vern Kelly. I know you guys don't know that name very well, but I would Jerry and Vern are very good friends and do a lot of replays together, which is pretty cool in itself. But not to get going off topic here, but yeah, it's just the heart pounding of playing somebody, and when it's a close game, when it's a blowout, you want to run the ball and get it over with. You know what I mean? And that's happened to me multiple times, but it's fun. Like I said, I'll stop rambling, but it's just the one-on-one and interaction, and just when it's a close game and your heart's pounding because you want to win, and the competitive juices are flowing, like you did when you're in high school or college playing. It's a different animal playing face to face.
It is.
Brad, do you do much solo replaying, or
I probably have like 3 or 4 projects that are as far as Bobby's 81 replay on. I have tried a couple times to do a 95-96 basketball. That's the basketball too, because I'm that young. The first basketball is before me. So I have that, and growing up in Washington, big Sonics fan, and trying to see if I can beat that Bulls team. So I did a replay, and I found a way. I've got an Excel that really streamlines it, and I got games down to, I think the fastest I got them down to about 40 minutes for a whole basketball game. Definitely different. I have no clue how Jerry does it with all the original basketball stuff, because the basketball too has a lot of they just say it's an up and down shoot 'em game, and I'm like this. I'm okay with that. And I have a bats 2 set that I want to say I'm about 30% done with, but then I joined. Then once we got the ACFL started, and I'm in the WBO baseball league with Bobby. He roped me into that. Now I don't have a whole lot of time for my own projects. I'll get a few games in here and there with my bats replay. Not so much a replay; it's a draft league, because I was introduced to the game of APBA baseball by draft league. So when it comes to replays, I've always been less interested in the replay and more interested in the draft league style, the fantasy of like whatever team you can create. When I started playing APBA baseball, my team, the 3 guys that I remember on that team that I got when I was 9 was Greg Maddox, Barry Bonds, and Jose Canseco. Like probably at the time, probably 3 biggest guys, like in baseball at that time, and that was my nucleus, and I worked around those guys, and but and then like with the APBA football, I just enjoy the league play. Absolutely. I mean, for me, there's nothing better than league play. And yes, getting frustrated with dice, getting frustrated with situations, getting a bad beat. I've had many games where I'm frustrated but sweating wins out. Like I said, my team's not built to run up and down the field. So when I've got like a 2-point lead or a 4-point lead, and I have to give the ball back to Jerry, I'm not really excited about it. Because like you said, in a matter of a blink of an eye, it looks bad. The last game I played against Jared, essentially that's what happened. I scored to make it 32-29, and I was like, okay, I've got a field goal lead if I have to go into overtime. Okay, that's fine. And, you know, a 66K run and then another doubles and a one, and Miles Sanders, you know, marches into the end zone. He better do that for me in the NCFL. I'll try to get Jared right back for that one.
How do you have a single system of keeping stats like Pro Football Helper? It's all one system. Everyone's consistent.
Yeah, because I do the website. Yeah, so I kind of made a format. Everyone keeps their stats differently, right? But I try to make it as simple as possible. So I went ahead and sent a spreadsheet out. So everyone just sends it, uploads their stats onto that spreadsheet, sends it back to me. Then I'll upload it into the website. So right now we've gone 3 games. Everyone has turned their games in except for myself in Minnesota, which, like I said, those should be turned in either tonight or tomorrow. And then I'll actually do the league leaders as well. So we'll have a league leader page up to 3 games. And so we'll probably do another, probably do 4 games. So it'll be, 7 at that time. So we'll wait another 4 games before we do all the stats again. So probably 3, 4, and 3. And then we'll always have league leaders. I'm big and about going back about the history of the league and going back and look at the league leaders and seeing who did what. And then, then of course, as the league grows as far as longevity goes, you can look back and you can start doing, all time, league leaders type thing, like records. And I know the NCFL has that. Dick Rupert does a fantastic job keeping the records for that. And Jerry always pulls that up when there's a playoff game or regular season, and we'll say, hey, this is a new record, which is pretty cool. I think we had one, when I was playing a playoff game last year in the NCFL, I think Deebo Samuel had 3 rushing touchdowns, and he tied an NCFL record for a playoff for rushing touchdowns, which is pretty cool. So Jerry,
Chris Carson did it.
Who did that?
Chris Carson.
Chris Carson. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The next week, that's right. In the Super Bowl, Chris Carson did. That's right. So those things are great, right? And so I want to design something for the website or add a page to the website where it does have the league leaders as far as the all-time record holders for the leagues. I can do it for the NCFL because Dick does a great job with that, and he's got a spreadsheet, and I can go ahead and look at that and start doing that for a page. And then I want to do the same thing for the ACFL. So we can go back and look and see records and just pull it up on the website. And anyone can go on the website to take a look at that. And I think I posted a couple times on Facebook just to get the interest, because I feel like we want to grow, league play. Just not our league, but we'd like to see other leagues grow as well. I know there was someone that was trying to grow a league as well, just as recent, I believe. I think I saw the post on Facebook.
The guy in Houston. Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. And like I said, Jerry brought me in this league, I think in 2013. Jerry and I were in a baseball league together, and my buddy Mike Filona, Jerry didn't realize I liked football as well. And then Mike was talking about it, and then I said, I'd be interested. And then, of course, Jerry reached out to me, and I guess the rest is history. 9 years later. So, but yeah, I think that the league website, in my opinion, really gets a good gauge as far as people's interest, in my opinion. So I think people enjoy it. I try to freshen up the front page with trying to be, trying to give updates of what's going on week to week. Being subjective with it, you don't want to be, hey, the Falcons are the greatest team ever, and or whatever the case should be. But I want to be subjective, where you can kind of pretend I'm a sports writer or whatever, and kind of write up the write-ups on the games itself. And even though we don't see every play-by-play, guys do post in the league office what is going on during that game, which is pretty cool. We can take snippets out of that and post that onto the website just to say, hey, just like with Greg's game with Jared, not to bring it up, Greg, but Jared had a Hail Mary at the very last play of the game, which is pretty cool. Sort of what happened to me today, in a sense. And so you post that, and people really like, at least I like reading it. I'm a stats junkie like Brad and Jerry and like Greg. So we're all, I'm a stats geek, so I enjoy that. So
well, I tell you, I didn't mean to interrupt. That website you have is great, Bobby.
I appreciat it.
It really
Jerry
is. I go to a lot of. I wish mine looked as good as yours. That's for certain, man.
I appreciate it. Jerry can tell you, Jerry is basic as they come, and I love the graphics. So Jerry's kind of my author. So Jerry will tell me, hey, that's too much. It's go this way with it. And so now I enjoy graphics. I'm a big graphics geek as well, and I try to enhance.
I'm going to have to get with you sometime off topic. You can maybe help me out a little bit.
Absolutely, I'd be more than welcome to.
Well, that's it. I mean, and the visual, I mean, it makes sense, that, football is so visual, the uniforms, the pageantry, all that good stuff, the logos. We obsess over the history of the uniforms stuff. So it just totally makes sense that it kind of draws that kind of personality and characteristic to it. Speaking of all the stats, so many questions. And by the way, it would be great. I would love, and I think it would be awesome if you ever decided to live stream some of your, say, your conference championships and your Super Bowl. That could be interesting. But in the off season now, do you kind of look back at your own stats for your team, for the league in general? Do you see any big anomalies, or do these cards, which are calculated to perform in a season and a team, do they tend to perform, even in this context, relatively similarly to their actual NFL numbers?
You're the stats guy, Bobby.
I would say that the NCFL is pretty close to the real life stats, and then of course the formula that we use in the ACFL, it's a little different. I think right now, I mean, Matt Ryan has 15 touchdown passes in 3 games, a little unrealistic in real life, but then again, I throw the ball a ton, especially down the goal line. So I haven't played these 3 gentlemen yet, so now they know my tendencies, so which is great. But with that, yeah, I think the NCFL and Jerry and Brad, you can tell me if we're pretty close, I think, on stats with that, even though we played 13 games. And I think 10, I think if you look at it, I think we're maybe right on it with the ACFL, maybe a little bit more than normal, because I think we're in the 20s, I think, after 10 games, 25. I think the most, what was it, 29 touchdown passes so far, I believe, maybe, because I was out of league. I was out a year. I think in 15, I believe I didn't play in the ACFL, but I think the most touchdown passes in 10 games is 29. Am I right, or is it 32? I can't remember. I have to go on the website and take a look, but because I don't think we have 15 or 16 stats. I think we have 17, 18, 19, and 20 right now. I might be wrong. Or we might have just 18 now I think of it. I think we have 18, 19, and then 20, and then of course we'll have 21. So I don't know what happened from, I guess, 17 to 15, right? Or when did the league start? 2014?
Yeah, the ACFL was 15.
15.
So 2014
yes.
season.
Okay, yeah, so 15. So we don't have 15, 16, or 17 stats, unfortunately. We have 18, 19, 20, and of course now we'll have 21.
The way I look at it when it comes to stats, if that's what replays are for. You play face to face. I don't care about the stats. You play to win the game, and that's just how Yeah,
anytime you take a card set that's formulated for league replay, league context, you take it out of context and put it in an all-star league, you're never going to hit the numbers spot on. But again, it's all about the face-to-face action and the experience.
Sure. I think for me, when I look at stats, I look at the performance of the card that was based off of their NFL season and how they played in the league. And quarterbacks always perform in a league better than their card performed generally, except for maybe for Jerry. Zajack, for some reason, if it's not on, it's off. And so Aaron Rodgers, who should carve up everybody every time, sometimes he struggles a little bit. But when you don't know what a short pass is or a screen pass is, when the NFL really, they use that. Like, they use that a lot, right? And if
my SP is broken, all I can throw is MP and LP.
Yeah. And, so I think sometimes too, the NCFL runners' averages are higher. They're definitely higher than they would be in the NFL based off of what their card produces. I've never had a runner that is that has a big enough number of carries. I have a few guys that, that'll get a few carries here and there, but all my lead backs are usually outperforming their yards per carry fairly easily every year in the NCFL. In fact, even in the ACFL, and sometimes I attribute that to just being real lucky. I know Adrian Peterson against Las Vegas in my game, he had I think 206 yards running at like 35. So, that would happen in the NFL for real. Maybe not.
Yeah, we were almost always running 3 wide, and the runners are running up an index. That's going to contribute to those rushing averages being so much higher. And that's why we eliminated the +1 to try and counter some of that, but you still can't make up for all of it running an A all the time. So.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And plus, I think our now thinking about it, our completion percentage is awfully high as well. I mean, we're probably, in the 70s. A lot of quarterbacks, I would say, are in their 70s. In real life, they're in 65 to 68 range right now in the NFL, ballpark. And we're high in the I wouldn't say high in the 70s, but I'd say 72 to 75% completion with the leagues, I would say. So we're a little bit higher than the normal.
I think the completion percentage is about right, only because every one of us has one of those top tier quarterbacks. So we don't bring anything down. I mean, we play against top tier quarterbacks, which for on the defensive side is very frustrating, because you're like, I got them right where I want them, and they still beat you sometimes. But yeah, as a defensive play caller, I think that's the trickiest part is, like Jerry says, running 3 wide, going up an index as a runner, but you're playing against a bunch of star quarterbacks. Are you really willing to drop down to a nickel to drop that runner down to, and, you're crossing your fingers that you catch them right, or you hope that they, their dice are about as good as Mike's are. And I'm going to let Mike know right now, we call it Mike dice, right? I mean, I've never seen as bad a luck for a complete game as I've ever seen from his dice tower. So, I don't know, maybe it's the dice, it's the tower. Maybe he's down in Texas. I don't know.
Well, that brings up a good point. Any superstitions or any rules on, I mean, obviously, you're doing it on camera, so the camera's on the field when you roll, right? I mean, and then the offense and the defense, they kind of enter the play in their formation at the same time. You go 1, 2, 3, go, pops up, and then you run the play.
I've got my setup here. If you guys want to, for everybody else to see, this is what the opposing coach would be looking at on game day. You see the dice, you see the skill players that are on the field. It's crooked, but you get the gist of it. And that way he knows who he can key on. He knows Anderson's an asterisk. He knows Joe Mixon's running. That's a 3 wide formation. After the play is called, the dice are rolled, and then you rectify, resolve the play. Other than
that was probably a 20-yard play right there.
For Watson, yeah. That was a 7 for Watson.
Jeff, I got to share with you, my rookie game, I'm a rookie, but my initial game was very intimidating. First thing I view, I'm playing the Raiders, and I get on Skype, I'm still learning Skype, get on Skype, and I see he's got 3 asterisk receivers. It was like the equivalent of being in high school and you see the other team get off the bus and they're all 7 feet tall. You know what I mean? It was scary.
Uh-oh. Oh, man. Now, Jerry, is that a cheese-shaped dice tray there?
That is actually a pizza slice tray that I got at the dollar store.
I was going to say, it's awesome.
It's a pizza container for leftover piece of pizza, and I put 2 pieces of plastic together. Just got my Green Bay.
I remember that one. Yeah.
I've got $3 in this dice tower from the dollar store, and it's served me for the last 10 years. So.
Should that be?
There's guys like Brad's got an elaborate stadium built. Bobby's got a stadium built, wooden boxes, goalposts, and all that kind of stuff. So it can be as simple as you want or as fancy as you want. And that all adds to the game.
For sure.
I can tell you, you see my background. That's my field. That's a picture of my field, and then my player tab right there. You see Phillip Rivers. I just quick jam something in there instead of like what Jerry just showed you. That was my way of showing you, is just that right there. That's what my field looks like. That's what you'll see. Sometimes you'll see Phillip Rivers get knocked out of there because I think APBA permanently gives him a 23, and I don't like it.
So
only when I roll it do I not like it, though.
In terms of defense, allocating, I mean, do you even bother with allocating sacks? How do you allocate interceptions? Is that just you do it from the board result?
We allocate the sacks using the QS ratings on the card, but in a draft league setting, they're not going to be totally accurate, but at least it gives you something to go by. If a guy's a QS 8, he's going to get more sacks than the guys that's a QS 5. But those QS ratings are based on the NFL team and not a draft league team. So, but it gives you something for sacks. As far as receiving, no, that's entirely up to the head coach. Based on usage limitations for that season. If I want to throw to Robbie Anderson, I'll throw to Robbie Anderson. Of course, the opposing team is going to key on that asterisk more often than not. But yeah, there's no allocation of receivers other than the head coach's discretion.
Only everybody keys Michael Thomas. Let's remember that. I think last year, because I only had one asterisk in the NCFL, and it was Michael Thomas, and he had like a bazillion catches. And I think I used up half of them and I threw in many games throwing to him. I was like, yeah, fine. You're going to key him. I'm just going to throw down 2. I'm just going to have to, just because I was like, I don't want to keep him out of the game. But Jerry will tell you, I think he keyed him about 95% of the time.
Well, sure. That's that's it. I was saying, if you've got 4, you're facing 3-4 asterisk receivers. How do you just try to round robin it? Do you, as a defensive, you're trying to, or if as your offensive coach, are you just kind of throwing it around, or do you kind of, maybe focus on one guy for a while and try to set up the other asterisk guy?
I have no idea. I never have receivers like that.
It's interesting. When you get that family of riches there. Is there any what's I lost the word. Can you do mid-season trades?
No, neither league will allow mid-season trades. But yeah, in the off season, it's wide open. Yeah. And we also allow trading of draft picks as well. And we allow trading of draft picks during the draft, just like the NFL. And that's kind of neat, because if you see a guy coming up in the draft and you want to move up, hey, I'll give you a first next year or a second next year to move up, 4 or 5 spots or whatever. Kind of adds to the luster of the draft too. So.
Interesting. How long does it take you to kind of set up the draft? Kind of get the cards, lay them out, however you do. I think you said you had 8. Well, it's an 8-round draft for one league.
Yeah, it's 12 rounds in the NCFL. Okay. So you've got 120 players that are going to get selected.
Mm.
So yeah, you got to have at least 120 on your draft list. You try to have around 150 just in case, because depends on what position you're in need of too.
How important are the linemen in the game other than their points? Do you try to do any incorporation of matchup, anything like that?
There's no matchup system like Ray does. It's strictly to help the offensive index.
Gotcha.
It's really important though. They're overlooked sometimes, but they're hugely important. That's just how I've gone. Like I said, when I took over my team, offensive line, it's the trickiest. I think it's the trickiest position to draft to for any kind of APBA, because we don't get to see the players before we draft. So we're going in blind and hoping we've figured out how APBA is going to rate them. And I have missed wildly on offensive linemen before. I think this last year in the NCFL, I hit it, but that's, how many drafts has that been? 8 or 9, 10, but I've missed big time because I don't have all pro guys that you can just anchor with like some guys have had. And so I've tried to build offensive line in those points. Like Jerry says, having 49 points on offense is a big deal. And you can really gain a lot of points on offense if your line is points heavy, and I think offensive line is probably the trickiest position to draft in our leagues. I don't know how you guys feel, but I know for me it's been the toughest position to draft for.
No, I agree with you, Brad. I think when I first came in the league, I felt I had a pretty good offensive line, which built my team up as far as index points goes, right? And then guys retire. I had Marshall Yonda, who was a straight five for years after year after year. He retires. Now I have to backfill him in the NCFL. I did get Jenkins from Green Bay, and he's a 4 right now, but hopefully he'll be a 5 one day, especially with that offense. But I think building a great defense, because the way the NCFL does it is +3, -3. So we don't do the 7-7. So it's +3, -3. So I was fortunate last year, just like Jerry has this year, with his offense being 49-49. My defense last year was 49-49. Probably the main reason I went 12-1 last year and lost in the playoffs with a 2-point conversion. Anyway, I'm going to get past that and move on to,
He's still not past it.
It pisses me off that he ran a screen and got exactly 7 yards. I knew it was coming, and I was going to call a G line, and it would have been over. I would play Brad in the Super Bowl. So I'm not over that. Won't get over that until I play the Raiders again and hopefully kick his ass, because he'll be he's against me this year as well. So that's my anyway.
It instills passion. That's what the league does.
That's my competitiveness there. But I think building a good defense is a key in the NCFL, because a lot of guys are besides Jerry, who's a 49-49, a lot of guys are in the low 40s, like 43, 44, 43. So if you're in that high, like right now, my defense this year coming up is 46-46. I felt a couple ratings. Bud Dupree is one of them, was a straight 3. He had a great year for the Steelers, and I know he got hurt, but I felt he should have been a 4. But that's
should have been a 3. He's a Steeler.
Yeah,
put it out there.
Anyway, so my defense is a 46-46. So I have a lot of guys in the C's again going into this year, and I think Jerry has a very high Actually, Brad and Jerry both have a very high defense. So they're going to be putting a lot of guys in the C's as well, including myself, because I think my offense is 43 or 42-41 in the NCFL. It was 41-40 in the ACFL. So if that tells you with the +3, -3 in the NCFL, it makes a huge difference by having a really good defense. By having guys in the C's, one, you're going to get more turnovers and interceptions, because then if you don't have an asterisk, you're throwing in the C's instead of the B's. So it's going to be, Brad and Jerry are going to be very tough to play against, because I think majority of the league, if I'm not mistaken, will be in the C's against you guys. And I think 7 or 6 out of the 10 teams will be in the C's against me. So I think having a good defense is a key as well. And I know, like what you're saying about the offensive line, if you have a good offensive line, that'll combat, a good defense as well, especially because everyone has a lot of good skilled position players that are 4s and 5s.
One thing you got to keep in mind, especially with the offensive line, is you have to consider the product you're using. Now, you look at these card sets that have been coming out. You don't have the big point differentials like you did in yesteryear. Okay, you might have a top tier offense. It's a 40. All right, I'm doing prep for my next replay now, and the Chiefs in 68 have the highest defense with a 43. Nothing's even close to that. Okay, my point being is, when you have that crunched in thing, you have teams that are 3-4 points apart. Your linemen, man, it's really hard then. Okay, because your 5s are going to be your skill players, your 4s are going to be your skill players. So your linemen are getting pigeonholed with a lot of 3s. Like I was shocked, because I had, I thought, okay, I'm going to get Tooney. He's going to be a 5, because, I'm the Patriots, and, he was still, I could get him as my base 10. Well, I mean, he's not. It's just, it makes it harder. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just, the point differential is not as great as it used to be, so it makes it harder to I don't know if any of the fellas agree with that, but
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
agree. Yeah, the modern card sets are definitely designed that way.
yeah, makes it tougher.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, if you go back, well, I've just got a box full of the some of the current 70s sets. 75. Oh, there you go. So for anyone who's looking at that, and I'd heard that I think from Tebow that say the 76 Steeler offense is a 35, something like that. So yeah, that's a whole different from where like the 62 Packers were like a 49, 47, something like that offense.
Yeah, you don't see that no more, Jeff, with these cards being released.
Interesting. I mean, you've really got to. Well, then how the V ratings then becomes almost. I mean, because sometimes you'd have a 2.5, right?
And there's not a lot of V ratings with a lot of the cards that have been released. At least the ones that I've been playing with, it's pretty limited. Like I'm doing this as a 75 replayers, hardly anybody that has a V rating. I mean, there's some. It's very, very rare. Not like it used to be. It used to be that was the fun of it. You'd have offenses, I'm just making up numbers here, 38-35 type deal or whatever. You don't have a whole lot of that right now.
Even with the newer, like the current 2010 and up season sets.
Yeah, when I did the 2019 season, there wasn't a ton. I mean, it really wasn't. I think the biggest thing that the game company hears things from the audience, okay, and I don't think that the V rating has been talked about enough. Multi-coding has been talked about a lot. Like having the Rob Gronkowski's being carded ETEB, okay, to give you flexibility. All right, that's talked about a lot, but at least in what I see, V ratings has not been a hot button issue.
And I would agree on that. I did some calculations in the NCFL from, I believe I don't know if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. There were 100 players that had split ratings of some sort. And then the following year, there were only 60. Now that's within the league, but I'm sure that would, prorate over, to the entire NFL. But there was a drastic decrease in the number of players that were given split ratings.
Yeah.
I think for me, what I see with the split ratings is really the split ratings in the NFL are going to be your guys that aren't necessarily your top tier snaps guys, right? Like, so your defenders that are on the field all the time are probably going to get a straight rating, where a pass rushing specialist defensive end would be like a 4.1 or something like that. But without knowing how far, how deep you want to go to research that with players, it makes it difficult to come up with the right V rating per se, but yeah, I mean, personally, I like the V rating because I see stuff. And going back to talking about offensive line, I think the Seahawks offensive line in the Russell Wilson era have generally been overcarded by APBA because they are terrible when I watch them with my own eyes. And a lot of times I think that each and every one of them should have a split rating. They've typically been much better blockers against the run, but just look at Russell Wilson's career sack numbers and they're not so good at pass protect, which also is a pain for me having him in the NCFL. As these guys can attest to, Wilson's getting sacked almost on average about 6 times a game across the whole season. Oh yeah.
Ooh. How about the scramble numbers? Is there much of the kind of the pistol, which I guess is almost passe now? I mean, but generally the running quarterbacks perform, since you've got the aerial game, but you also got some of these mobile guys and the whole,
I don't like the mobile quarterbacks. I don't like the way they're carded by APBA. I'll be honest with you. I'm sure I've had the conversation with Jerry and Bobby before that putting in the scramble numbers in the quarterback's throwing column, it really kind of skews their results numbers as a passer, because there's no place to put them, but they have to be put in there to replicate it, which I understand. Look at the difference of a guy, say like Drew Brees, which might be a little bit high because he's a guy who passes for 72% completion and whatnot. But having seen all of Wilson's cards, he's had a couple seasons where he's 68% completion passer. When you look at his numbers on his card and you go, all right, you stop at this number and you take a comparable quarterback, and you're like, you got like 5 or 6 more numbers that's going to get you those short completions that Wilson's not going to see because his card is designed to get him to scramble. But he happens to be my quarterback in the NCFL, so I just have to make it work. I did win a Super Bowl while making it work with him part of the time and Case Keenum the other part of the time. I had to go college platooning. It worked that year. But that's just how I've seen it. I don't think the other guys have really had a scrambling quarterback. I know I traded Bobby for Michael Vick my first year in there. He didn't want anything to do with him. I took Michael Vick and put him in the backfield with Russell Wilson. He was my fullback.
Interesting.
I traded for Cam Newton. I traded Tom Brady for Cam Newton, right? So my first year. So my buddy who took over was no longer in the league. Big Patriots fan. So
Brady couldn't have many good years left at the time.
Yeah, that's my thought. 38 years old. I'm like,
that was 8 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, 36 maybe. Yeah, 36. Yeah. Like some of the bitch is gonna retire soon. You know what I mean? So hey, I'll take Cam Newton's young. And granted, Cam Newton the next year went to the Super Bowl, right? And had a fantastic card. But those, and I traded Gronkowski and Brady for Cam Newton and Jimmy Graham. So I thought, hey, I'm getting a great tight end in Graham, and Gronk's always hurt. And anyway, yep, that's a great trade. That's a good trade. Yeah. And now I have to deal with Kirk Cousins. He's got listen, I drafted Kirk Cousins in the 12th round, and he took me to a Super Bowl in 17. So as I played Renegade every game before, if you guys didn't know that. So before I signed on, Renegade was blasting in the back. I haven't done it since, and maybe I need to start doing that. So as my superstition, I played Renegade, went on YouTube and did the Steeler high. You know how they do that? I don't know if you guys have seen that. So I got myself all geared up for my APBA game. I haven't done that since. I'll be honest
with you. I never go on YouTube to look at anything related to the Steelers.
I don't do anything for Seattle either, Brad. At least I want to see Russell get sacked.
There's definitely footage of that all over.
There's tons of it. I can send you links all day long, bud.
Hey, I just want to say this in defense of Russell Wilson. He has not had a 30-yard lost sack like Patrick Mahomes. I'm just saying.
Man, oh man. For anyone who is watching and is not an APBA football fan and who might, and there have been some, it takes a long time to play. It's why are you carding these guys who don't do anything? I hope this has kind of debunked some of that. All cards matter depending on how you use them. And in terms of the gameplay, the play-by-play, I mean, love the quick play games and all that, but when you've got every one of your guys carded, I think it makes a world of difference in, what, and I guess it's, of course it comes down to what you're trying to recreate, but if you really want to be kind of, in a game, that play-by-play with, individuals, I know some people don't even play with injuries. I think it's important, but, just if you're hearing this, I hope you get a sense of maybe trying APBA again or trying it for the first time, because this is kind of really the essence of how, intense it can get and how it really, from that simple engine, can blossom out into these really incredible experiences. I am looking through my notes. Speaking of time, how long do you set a time allocation for your games?
I don't think we do. I think we just go ahead and play, and if it takes 4 hours, and normally it doesn't. I mean, like tomorrow I play Jerry. We'll be done in 2:15 probably. But some of the games probably. I mean, these guys Brad can say, everyone can talk about it. I think like today took us about 2:55 today. So I'm hoping the games will be done within 3 hours. Some games have gone 3.5, and unfortunately, some have gone 4 hours, just because we've had rare plays that come up, and whoever's doing the typing might be a little bit slower than say Jerry or Brad or myself. It just takes some time, but I don't allocate any time. When I play, when I'm done, I'm done.
I've had some long ones before. Early in the NCFL, I had a game. I want to say it was 5 hours long. I was done at 3. It was like 1:30. I was on the West Coast. That was like 1:30. And it just happened. I think I had another game one time. I think he fell asleep. It was too much for him. I think he fell asleep. And I was just like, I'm like, and it was a blowout, so I get it. I'm like, maybe this is too much for you. And I was like, I'll take knees all day long. I'll punt it to you. You just tell me you can take knees, and we'll just get this done and put it in the books, and we'll move on from there. But yeah, generally about 3 hours is what I look at. And for me, 3 hours is I don't know. I guess to me it's just like perfect. I mean, I'm going to spend 3 hours to watch a football game on TV anyway. And being a guy who grew up in the Madden football video game era, I'll say this about APBA football. It's to me, I love Madden. I'll play it. In fact, I think I played it like probably a couple of weeks ago. Just played it a little bit, and the game of APBA football, the depth of it is so much deeper. I mean, I'm the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. I'm masterminding everything, and and then I got the dice in there, and sometimes they're on my side, and sometimes they're not, and it's a wrinkle in the game that there's nothing that we can do to figure it out. Bobby talks about playing Renegade, getting psyched up. Sometimes it's the superstition is, hey, do I roll the dice this way? Do I put the red die in first in the cup and then the white die, or some silly change like that? Or, I mean, I've probably got, 5 or 6 pair of dice. And if it's going real bad, I'm like, hey, you know what, guys, it's time to switch them out and grab the other pair. And, that may work, may not work. I don't think it really matters. But yeah, there's a little superstition in there. And it's just the whole experience of the game, and being able to play face to face, and the camaraderie with the group. I mean, it's awesome. And there's not much anything better than this as far as I'm concerned. I'm a huge sports fan. Love football, baseball, just sports in general, and being able to do this, I love it. I don't think there's much things better, even in this day and age. There's nothing a computer or a video game console can do. You can't replicate this. It's just not possible.
Well said, and it's all true about the dice. It's absolutely true.
They have the perfect play dialed up. You're the coach on the sideline. Everything you wanted, you got that defensive set. That's what you've been hoping for, right? But listen, that's what the beautiful thing. It's 2 steps. All right. First is the mental step. All right. Now the ball snapped. Okay. The dice is rolled. Hey, guy misses a block, or guy drops the pass, or it's all got to come together.
That's right. Last question for the group. This has been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. For those, we talked about trying to set up a league. What would be your general, caveats for, because it's, playing by Skype, it's easy. NCFL has the mesh method. They'll pass on the method to you. Greg's got it on his site. We can post it. Any general thoughts for anyone who said we can get 5 guys together? It doesn't matter where. 10. It's got to be an even number, or does it? Is there a comfortable limit to the number of teams? What would you do to get a league up and running pretty quickly from all that you've experienced and how you've grown?
I mean, for me, it has to be the people for one. I mean, you can have 6 guys, you can have 8 guys, you can have 10, 12. It's got to be the right guys that want to dedicate their time week in and week out. If it's a 10-game schedule, it's a 13-game schedule. And that's what's so nice about our 2 leagues is we got guys that are dedicated, right? They enjoy. Now we have a lot of guys that are in both leagues, right? We have, I think, 3 guys that are not in the ACFL. I'm like Brad right now, ACFL, and we have, I think, Greg's the only one that's not in the NCFL, and I think, and then everyone I think in the ACFL, right, is in the NCFL minus Greg. So
there's 7 coaches that have double duty.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just having the right guys that want to dedicate 3 hours, 3 to 3.5 hours, if not less, 10 weeks, or if you make the playoffs, 11, 12 weeks, and then 13, 14, 15. It's just, to me, it's the people. You have to have the right people that want to dedicate their time to do this. In the way the APBA community is, I think there's a lot of people like that want to sit down and do the head-to-head. I know I enjoy it. I'm glad Jerry asked me to be in the league, 9 years ago or 8 years ago, and Brad decided to go ahead and break out and make another league in the ACFL, and these guys are my friends. They're not just, and that's the thing. You build friendships out of this as well. But to your point, I'm going off topic as I normally do. But I think to start a great league, Jeff, is you got to have the people that want to play it, want to give you the time. We've had guys that have come in and gone, right? Every league has that. In my baseball league, we lost 3 managers in our baseball league this year alone. Guys just didn't have the time. So if you have the time and you want to play it, then it's easy to do. But if you don't, you're going to manager after manager or coach after coach after coach. You're going to rotate those people, and it gets frustrating. And then no one wants to do it. It's like, well, we've already lost 2 guys, league's going to fall apart. And we've had, a consistency with our coaches. And that's, it's, one, I give kudos to Jerry. I think Jerry kept the league going, I think a couple years ago, because Jerry sat in, he did every game where he sat in, he was the referee. He did the boards, he did the typing. Games are getting done in 2.5 hours. And now we're able to go ahead as individuals and do that. And play without Jerry, so to speak. So, it's true, Jerry. I mean, I think you kept the leagues going, and but it's having those dedicated people, and not to go on, like I said, I usually go on a rant, but it's true though, and these guys can chime in as well, and what makes a good league. But it's just having the right people, and if you have 1 or 2 people that really are just totally dedicated and they get the league going, I think everything just moves smoothly, and then you have a really successful league. And the 2 leagues we're in, I think, are very successful right now.
Well said. Any other thoughts about just kind of getting a quick a list of 5 things to do if you're going to get a league up and running? All right. We will post those rules for play. Again, you can go to Greg's. We'll post the link to Greg's site here. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute thrill to catch up with you. It's an awesome league. It's a Hall of Fame league. I mean, it's one of the oldest APBA leagues, period. Stay in touch with their websites, NCFL, ACFL, and they cover a lot of ground. You heard it. I mean, these are expert players, and get yourself a league going. Thank you, guys. And I hope to catch up with you soon. And if you ever decide to live stream a game, man, let us know. We'll promote that for sure.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having us on. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for this, Jeff.
Great seeing you guys.
You too.
Greg.
Take care, guys.